The sign-in code was just dropped in the chat too. Thank you, Carla. We're just going to chill a little bit while we let everyone sign in. Thank you all for participating. We'll go ahead and get started and we'll keep this energy going. Slide, please. Perfect. So we're just going to introduce ourselves. And while we do that, please don't forget to sign in. Carla put the link in the chat for us, but you can also scan it right here. So I'm Destiny. I'm in the South Bay, so specifically the San Jose region, and I'll go ahead and pass it over.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan. I'm a fellow at City College of San Francisco, and I'll pass it on to Mark.
Hey y'all, I am Mark. I am or was the fellow for Contra Costa, Diablo Valley, and Los Medanos. Today's actually my last day, so I'm actually really excited to finish my time at 10,000 Degrees with a presentation with y'all. So thank y'all for coming. And I think I'm the next person to talk about our mission. So on the next page, y'all, this might be your first webinar with us. It might be a second or third, but thank you all for coming and spending time with us during your summer to learn a little bit more and get prepared for college. So first, we wanted to start off with just talking about 10,000 Degrees. We are we're very proud of that, leading equity-focused scholarship provider and college success nonprofit in California. And we have a very clear mission. And it's to achieve educational equity. And we do that by supporting students from low-income backgrounds, not only getting access to college, but also through college by providing them support so they can stay in college and attain their educational goals. And we do this because we really believe that this support can help students like yourselves realize your full potentials and go back to your community or impact the greater world. And on the next page, we can talk about how much we've actually done this work for a while now. Currently, we're supporting over 16,000 students and families. You'll see that all the 8 Bay Area counties that we're providing support in are in addition to our support services in Utah. And we're in 44 high schools, 57 community colleges, and 194 four-year colleges and universities nationwide. So we have a lot of support. We're supporting a lot of students. And one experience that I've noticed as a fellow is students don't really know who the other 10,000 Degree students are on their campus. So if you even have like an inkling or maybe some suspicion that someone's from 10,000 Degrees, you should just reach out. We have a really big community and we provide a lot of support to folks. And on the next slide, from our mission, remember how I talked about how we really want to connect students to the access of college and supporting them throughout college. So you can think of this as a timeline. There's at the beginning, the college pathways and awareness and preparation. Some of y'all have interacted with us to get some support with figuring out your college goals. We also have college and financial aid advising. So it can be a complicated system, and we're here to provide that support to clarify things and help you through. We also have scholarship and financial aid management because it's also a complicated system and it can be kind of confusing trying to understand where these huge lumps of financial aid award is going to and how to best use them. Once you actually get into college, we have our success and support team here to help you navigate, as well as specifically for community college students. If you are transfer bound, we have dedicated support for that, whether it's supporting you with PIQs or personal insight questions, helping you with applications, or helping you explore which college you want to transfer to. And then lastly, these are some really exciting developments. We have our career and graduate school readiness, as well as our alumni success. And this is essentially to support you transitioning from your educational goals and get you ready to take on your career or graduate school goals by connecting you with internships, connecting you with support for cover letters, mentors, resumes, and making sure that you're successful transitioning out from college and into the working world. Awesome. So I talked a lot about 10,000 Degrees. I'm going to reshift it back into our topic for today, which is personal finance. And our goal is for y'all to come out of this presentation having learned something new about personal finance and learning some foundations on how to start your budget or how to take a little bit more management on that aspect of your life. And with this goal in mind, our agenda includes talking about opening a bank account, which is a crucial big first step, talking about needs versus luxuries, credit, living off and on campus. And we have an amazing guest speaker today, Peter, who we will introduce later on.
Perfect. So before we go ahead and dive into personal finance, does anyone want to guess maybe what personal finance means or an example of a bill that you would consider like a monthly finance? There's a lot of different answers, so there's not really a yes or no answer. So if anyone wants to guess before we go into the actual term and meaning of it. Keeping track of your money. Yeah, thanks, Eric. That's exactly what personal finance is. Yeah, we're keeping track of what we're spending personally and what we need to do to either budget or save. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Perfect. Yeah. So exactly what Eric mentioned, just managing and planning our financial activities. And then by that, we're viewing, okay, what are we spending money on? Maybe weekly, monthly? Do we got to budget and cut back? And just basically being responsible for your money. So what I'm going to do is going to pass it to Jonathan, and Jonathan is going to discuss some ways how we can manage our personal finance.
Thank you, Destiny. All right, so we are going to talk about how to open a bank account. But first of all, let's start off with addressing the question of like, what is a bank account? So bank account is a place for you where you can deposit or withdraw funds, make payments, transfer your money to another person or institution, and you can even transfer your money from a savings to a checkings account. And you can also pay your bills electronically, and you can do a lot more than that. Bank's account will allow you to spend your money without cash on hand, right? Um, so first one, we have a checkings account. A checking account is the type of bank account that will allow you to easily deposit, withdraw money for daily transactions. So you can easily deposit your wage, your salary, or you can do other funds, right? Into your checkings account. And you can use that money to pay your bills. You might be wondering what type of bills. So we're talking about groceries, pay your rent, pay your books, and also, of course, you can withdraw cash from your checkings account if needed, right? A checking account will allow you to also store your money in a safe place and still be able to spend it. And if we move on to the next slide, please. All right, so now we have a savings account. Savings account is a place also where for you to keep your money, but this case is for a long term. So this is not something you'll be using like every week or every 2 weeks. This is more for like a month, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year. This is why this one's called savings account. Savings accounts are not intended to be used every day for everyday spending. And also the number of withdrawals or transfers you can make from savings accounts are limited. Usually it's like 6 times per month. And after that, you might be getting like a small fee from like if you use it more than 6 times. And what type of transfers can you make with the savings account? You could be transferring your scholarship check to your savings. You could you could also deposit that check to your savings account. You could be also transfer money because your balance in your checkings account is too low. Or you can also, this type of account is also a good place to keep your money for like emergency fund, savings, for your academic goals. Your savings might accrue interest, monthly interest. And I can give you like a quick example for that. I know that Chase right now, it's given, I believe it's 4% interest rate monthly. But here's the trick though. They will like give you 4% interest monthly, only if you have like, let's say you have $1,000 in your savings account, but you're not allowed to touch that money for a month. And that's how you get your interest, right? Um, Now if we move to the next slide. All right, so requirements. Um, these requirements might not apply to everyone. And if you feel like, oh, what if I'm not, meeting these requirements? What if I don't have this document? Is there anything I can do? My best recommendation for you will be to speak with the representative. I will definitely recommend that you go to a credit union and just make a meeting, you are there, or like agents are there to support you. And yeah, you can be like, hey, I wanna, open up a bank account. I was wondering what are your requirements? But in general, requirements are that you must have a driver's license, a passport, or state ID, or a military ID. You would also be required to have a social security number or a taxpayer identification number, which is an ITIN, and a proof of your current address, such as, utility bill, mortgage statement in your name, and money for initial deposit. Some banks will require this initial deposit to open a checking account, but others don't. So, and lastly, banks will also require you to have proof of income, right? And with that, I'll pass it on to the next person.
Thank you, Jonathan. So after we create our bank account, something that we're really going to have to learn is knowing the difference between a want and a need. And when we determine that, it can be hard sometimes. Sometimes that concert might feel like it is a necessity, even though it is a luxury price. So for some people, you're going to have to look at what you're spending and see what you can kind of take back or what you can buy less. For me, a guilty pleasure is eating out. I love DoorDash. I love going to like fast food spots. And I have to remember, like back in the day after school, I would beg my mom to get fast food. And of course, the answer is there's food at home. So that's something that I need to think of to try to save money. So it's really important to figure out those wants and needs. And then, but for some wants, you can actually use certain cards to kind of benefit that process. So if we go to the next slide, please, we'll cover credit cards. Credit cards can sound very scary at first just because it's very important. It matters when future purchases. So what is credit? So credit is basically an agreement that you are borrowing money for this purchase that you're making now, and then you pay it back. With credit cards, it is a little tough sometimes because majority of students coming in their freshman year either don't have a lot of work experience or just started their working experience, whether that be in fast food or retail. That was kind of my situation as well. So when I was a freshman applying for a credit card, I got denied the first time. So most credit cards, whether it be a gas card or a Target gift card, you might need an authorizer to help you out. So the second time when I tried to apply for the credit card, I had to get either a parent or a guardian or someone who can be that co-authorizer for me so that way I can get this card. So what I did is what I asked my grandpa, who already was building his credit, if he could be my co-signer for a Shell gas card. And with that, I would just use the gas card once a week when I'm going to school because I was commuting to CSU East Bay at the time. And when I was going to school, a full tank of gas was only $40. Now I don't know how much it is for some cars. So that's something that you got to take into consideration. If I'm spending $60 a week on gas to commute from school, you're going to have to owe your parents or your grandpa or guardian that $60 or more to pay back your credit card once that time is due. Understanding the difference between a credit card and a debit card is very important. With the credit card, you're not paying for that actual item at that moment. You can take it home, but you got to pay it back later. And if you forget to pay that back, you can get in a lot of trouble. And if you don't pay that back and continue not to pay that, it could really hit you financially when it comes to future purchases, like getting a car. If you try to get a car, they run your credit. If you try to get an apartment or a house later on, they're definitely going to run your credit. So it's very important to figure out what credit card is for me, how much should I be spending, and what should I do next. And then next slide, please. So when it comes to credit, basically how to ensure that you are in a good spot is by using this little chart on the side. This is a credit score. So when you're starting out, your score is going to be either 0 or very low because you're just starting out. So it takes time to build credit. The more that you constantly pay your bills on time, it'll keep going up. And then all cards have different rates and those interest rates that Jonathan was talking about. So it's also very important to connect with whatever credit card you're getting from. A good one is always Chase or like a Shell gas card just to get you started. And just start off with opening just one. Don't get crazy and open a lot because that can cause issues. And Peter, I'm sure, will probably go over that in a second once we get all of his great advice. And just understanding the requirements that's needed with credit cards. Jonathan did go over some requirements of like a legal name, documentation, an ID, something of that sort to verify that it's you. And then always make sure you're submitting your credit cards payments on time. Make sure you're budgeting and putting that in a calendar. And next slide, please.
Right. So we can stay on this slide for a little. I'm going to talk about housing in college, and it's going to relate to needs and wants. But I want y'all to think about like if you were given a recipe to bake a cake and you had someone helping you throughout like every step of the process, and they gave you all the ingredients you needed and it turns out amazing, right? How many of y'all do you feel like would be able to replicate that just based on that one kind of instruction or formula that someone gave you? I don't know about y'all, maybe y'all are like amazing bakers, but for me, that experience of kind of trying to take someone's formula and plugging it in to every situation probably won't turn out the same way, right? So I bring this up because housing or your needs and your wants also kind of come into that same situation where it's very personalized for each person. So what I'm hoping to do with this next slide and following slides is to give y'all some kind of strategies to think about housing or your budgets. All right. So here, oh yeah, no, like I can't bake like that. I can barely cook like that. So I feel that, Destiny. So I wanted to provide 4 different aspects or 4 different considerations when thinking about living on or off campus. First is convenience. We have like some convenience that you can think about is on campus living is pretty close to your lecture halls. So it's really nice to just walk over, or if you're in Davis, bike over. Um, we typically think about costs a lot when we think about housing. So I'll go into a couple of examples like that. Also, we have responsibilities like on campus positions or on campus housing. You may have some responsibilities to your roommates and housemates, like please like pick up after yourself, please be a nice like roommate, but you don't have responsibility over the general or like communal areas because there's college staff who take care of those spaces, right? This may look very, very different from living off campus where you have a lot more responsibilities to make sure that everything is neat and tidy and sanitary. And then lastly, we have freedom. So on-campus positions, there's usually, or housing, there's usually rules or policies that require you to adhere to a curfew. So you can't be out after 10 p.m. or you might be written up. Whereas on off campus, you'll be able to have a little bit more freedom of how you spend your time, right? So I want y'all to kind of keep these 4 different aspects in mind because they all can kind of vary depending on who you are and your current financial situation. But to kind of like ground or to give examples of this, we'll go to the next slide and I'll talk a little bit more about convenience, both on and off campus. So convenience on campus, you're super close to your classes, which is amazing. You have services and resources around you that are geared towards like students. So like there might not be a tutoring center in like downtown Santa Cruz, right? But there for sure is one at UCSC. And then you also have a simplified like living expense. Usually your monthly payments for your rent and your housing plans are typically very similar across the entire year. So my August rent and meal plans may look very similar to my September one. So it's really nice having that convenience and consistency. Whereas off campus, you may have to commute to campus, but you have a larger variety in local amenities. You could probably go to movies or go to like different ice cream shops or boba shops. So there's a lot more variety, which is another level of convenience, right? So it's really just figuring out which one feels a little bit more comfortable for you when you have the opportunity to explore different housing options. I'm gonna talk about costs. So living on campus, yeah, perfect example. Living off campus can cost a little bit more, depending on which like college you're at. Whereas living on campus, a nice thing about living on campus is it has those fixed living fees, right? Like you don't really have to worry about utilities, you don't have to worry about internet. Like those are all lumped in together, and the college takes care of that. In addition to that, living on campus, you can have some additional meal plans. So it's nice knowing that you can go to a dining hall and be taken care of for most of your meals of the day. There is a potential higher cost because of all these different amenities and all these different perks that you have with living on campus, but it really does vary within each campus. And then if you're living off campus, rent prices can vary a ton, right? You may be living and like splitting in a double where you have two people in one room, or you might be in a single, or it might be really close to campus. So there's a lot of different kind of rent prices. You have to take care of your separate utility bills and the different scheduling payments on those. And then there might be some potential savings as well if you're very mindful of your budget and know where to get those discounts. And then on the next slide, some responsibilities. I think blanket, like blanket statement, please take care of like all the things that you do in terms of like cleanliness. I think it's really important to have a really strong relationship with people that you live with, right? Because y'all spend probably a lot of time together. So living on campus, you still might have those minimal household tasks that I talked about earlier. There's simplified payments for housing where everything's kind of just housed with the college, and you don't have to worry about all these different like Comcast, internet, PG&E. And then there's also support systems, right? So living on campus, you probably have a greater access to getting things fixed within your dorm or getting support from the college to make sure that your living arrangement is like healthy and adequate for you to do well in your classes. And then off campus, there's chores, household management. Like you have to take a little bit more care with financial management. And there's also a responsibility with your lease agreements. On both on campus and off campus, you kind of do have a contract with where you live, but with off campus, the lease agreements will be a little bit more responsibility for you, maybe to find a new housemate or a new roommate to overtake your vacancy. Yes, we love that. And then freedom. Like I said, there might be university and college rules like quiet hours. There's less privacy in those shared living spaces as well. And you might not be able to customize your living spaces as much as you want. Maybe you could put a poster here and there, but we also have to be mindful of the people that we live with. But off campus, there's a lot more independence of your schedule and your household decisions. So if you want a new couch, you can kind of like get it together. You can go with your friends to IKEA and pick up a new couch that y'all agree on. There's a lot more flexibility with decorations and styles and your preferences. And there's also potential for more privacy if you do save up or if you find it helpful to have like a single. And then next slide. All right. So there was a question, really great question. How would I budget a meal plan? How much should they eat when they only have 12 meal swipes a week? This is a really good question. I never had the experience of having a meal plan or living on campus, but I'm wondering if Jonathan or Destiny did have that experience. Um, oh, Peter, yeah.
Yes, I actually played around with the meal plans during my freshman year in college and also my second year too. So speaking in that, it's just kind of mapping out, okay, are you the type of person that eats twice in a day, like lunch and dinner, like if you skip breakfast because breakfast isn't for you, or do you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And then based on that, how often do you think you can go off with eating with the meal plans? Like 12 times in a week pretty much represents, 3 times, maybe like 6 days out of the week that you go on campus and eat, and maybe you'll save Sundays for when you go out with friends and go eat like that, right? So it's up to you. Every person is different. The way I set it up was I did do a full 15 meal plan per week, which I'm always fed no matter what. It's like me going to the cafeteria because I can grab food whenever I want to, but just keep mindful like 3 times a week, 3 times a day, right? If you try to exhaust 5 meal plans in a given day, then you kind of played yourself throughout the rest of the week. So just think ahead of like how you want to plan your meals. If you're the type of person that, okay, I'm comfortable eating 5 days out of the week, like Monday to Fridays, on campus and Saturday, Sundays off campus, like eating out a couple times here and there, because sometimes I get sick of cafeteria food, then you can plan it that way. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks so much, Peter. And I think that's a perfect transition. So I'm just gonna wrap this up and then we're gonna pass it off to Peter. But yeah, your housing priorities may differ. Your convenience may be on this side, cost on that side, right? So it really depends on this kind of like relationship between all these four different criteria. But I hope y'all had time to screenshot or to take a photo of the tips, which include creating a budget, right? Like if you don't track what you spend, then it's really hard to figure out where you're missing out on savings or missing out on, or maybe going into the red with credit. So, and then using public transportations, there's a lot of free events, or you can also use your student discounts. We always recommend buying used or like rent textbooks on campus, or there's on campus resources. There's work opportunities near campus, which also breaks down your cost or expenses to actually get to your work. And then you can also work with your 10,000 Degrees team to apply for more scholarships and grants. But I think this is very important. You should budget also for fun, right? Like if you want to go to a concert maybe like once every semester, you can plan ahead in the summer and know that you need to maybe break off $100 to go to this concert with your friends. Like college has a lot of time for studying and to working and for working hard, but we should also reward ourselves too. But yeah, we can go on to the next slide.
Okay, I guess I'll just go ahead and start. Thanks, Mark, for the transition here. So, hi everybody. So, my name is Peter Hiep A, and as you can tell, based on the title itself, I am a financial services professional with New York Life and Nightlife Securities. So, basically, what I do is I've been given different names. One of my clients called me the money guy. One of my other clients called me the financial Aladdin because I showed them the whole world of finance. So, different names, but in all aspects of what I do in my day-to-day life is I help educate, especially around like the first generation immigrant family household, what it means to save. And not just saving to put away into like a savings account because my mom and dad told me to, but learning how to save to invest for your future, learning how to save for my first down payment for a home, learning how to save for a deposit for an apartment, or to want to own a dog at some point, right? And so forth, right? Different meanings, different goals. So that's what I come and help out. The way I like to explain it is that I like to create and develop this financial house. I am the main number one general contractor for this financial house, making sure your foundation, aka financial security, is solid. And if once that's solid, then everything else is learning how to build money and wealth. And once at a certain point, our ultimate goal in our life is to retire, and within retirement, do you want to relax? What do you want to see yourself, right? How do you want to treat yourself with retirement? The end goal is to make sure that you're going to be financially successful, right? That is what I do. So I believe there's another slide here to go on to, and loading. Oh, beautiful picture of me. I love it. Great. So Just a little bit of background for myself. I did graduate, as you heard, like from Sonoma State University, and I graduated with a physics degree. Later on down the road, I took advantage of another tuition assistance program through work, where I did graduate with a master's degree in business administration. So, oh, and then on top of that too, how I'm connected with 10,000 Degrees is that I am an alumni. I actually came in junior year, high school, and graduated 2011. And then later on, when I got into Sonoma State, this is when 10,000 Degrees was first introducing the college program at Sonoma State. So I met a lot of mentors there. I met a lot of colleagues there, and I mean colleagues outside of high school, right? Like colleagues from like high school in Napa Valley, from Santa Rosa. They were all part of the 10,000 Degrees family. So then having to connect with them and build relationships actually helped me get through my 4 years of college and graduating debt free thanks to 10,000 Degrees, right? Now, for the advice for the upcoming like freshman students that are going to go into college soon, right? One thing I wanted to emphasize is that it's okay if you don't know right away what your major is or what you're going to major. There is a lot of like testing, trial and error. Like, do you really, really like this because you genuinely feel good about it? Or are you going into this major because, money's sake, it makes the most money, right? Mom and dad thinks that you can be a doctor, et cetera, et cetera. Like I had that expectation, right? Um, but one thing I always want to emphasize is that it's okay. And within at least the first 2 years of just discovering what you like, take your time. Like explore through with an open mind when you're taking your GE courses, what strikes to you the most. And then later on down the road, you will still have time to still complete whatever necessary courses that you take in the remaining 2 years or 3 years in college. So how would I advise that and like the proper steps? Make connections with your counselor, your college counselor. And if you don't like that college counselor, you can actually request to go with a different college counselor that you can actually bond and connect with thoroughly, right? You also have resources with 10,000 Degrees. 10,000 Degrees at this point is so huge. They have the amount of resources for you to reach back to them. They watched you get to this point, and just know they're still going to be with you and not forget about you. The moment you reach out on DM, it's like, hey, I need some help with my major. Can you walk me through this? I need some help and support, whether it's academically, emotionally, mentally, right? You're going to go through all that struggle. Like, I'll say it again, you're going to go through all that struggle, and it's okay. That's normal, right? But just remember to yourself that um, any role that you get into and you feel really strongly about, the interest that you find, like in college, know that it's going to make you money later on. The more you love this type of passion or this niche and you go 100% into it, whether you go into, I don't know, I'm just going to say like a dancer, professional dancer. I know somebody who graduated with a dance degree, right? And now he's performing in New York Broadway, making like 200K plus for performing. That's his life, right? That's his life. And he got to that point where, I wouldn't say his battle through it was easy, but because he felt so strong and passionate with what he wanted to go for, that he made it happen. Hopefully that makes sense, right? And looking at some of the questions here that Destiny mentioned, if you have any financial questions for Peter, please put them in the chat because that would make it more conversational. There's also a couple other questions here that let me see. When did I open my first credit card? I actually opened it during my freshman year of college. Now, I know as you already took some like advice with Destiny and Jonathan and a little bit from Mark about like, oh, what kind of credit cards are open? How should I open a credit card? What should I use to buy with my credit card? What's been working for me, and I actually been through the struggles with it too, of going like a little bit deep in the rabbit hole here, is that make sure you spend within your means. Make sure you spend within your means. And what I mean by that is you should already understand how much you should spend on yourself, right? At least the basic needs for yourself. Now, in terms of luxury, not to say not to spend anything on it, right? Enjoy yourself. But ideally, if you want to manage your credit card more securely, spend within your means, know what's in your bank account, and if you're able to pay it off completely before the deadline, I would say knock it out. If you're unable to pay it off, pay at least like 80 to 90%. That's the rule of thumb. And then the remaining 10, pay it off in the next coming month, right? The idea is that if you want to have better credit score, then I would advise to try to keep making payments and pay off fully when you can, right? So for me, my credit score is dang near almost perfect because I started around 2015 and I was in $5,000 in debt with my credit card. And FYI, if you're in debt with a credit card, that's in general statistically 20 to 25% interest rate. That's pretty high. Okay. And it's so easy to fall behind and so easy to get discouraged. But if you have the funds to knock it out sooner rather than later and make that guaranteed focus, you're gonna feel that relief off your shoulders right away. And ever since 2015, right, to 2024 now, my credit score is like on the excellent radar. So I'm getting some direct messages here. Can I get more scholarships with 10,000 degrees? That would be something that you would work with one of the staff members there. I won't be able to answer that for you. Hopefully that helps. And then another one from Brianna. Do you think it's a smart idea to get a credit card right now, even though I'm not sure I'll be able to have a job this year during the school year? The answer is if you're able to manage it, then yes. You will not get dinged by opening up a credit card, and if you end up not using it, at least until like the next 3 or 4 months from now, that's fine. You can still manage that credit card, and when the times comes when you do take a job or you're able to manage whatever you receive through financial aid or scholarships, right, and you feel like you're able to still manage it, yes, I would say open a credit card right now when you can, and just know that you can still utilize that later on down the road. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions here. And there's no dumb questions. I just want to lay it out like that too. I guess I can also share a little bit of my background and hopefully it resonates with everyone. So I'm a first generation Vietnamese professional, now professional. Before I used to say college graduate. I mean, which I am. I'm a graduate now. I would say first generation Vietnamese. Grew up with immigrant parents who flew through Vietnam, right, during the war and got to where they are now, having to abandon everything. It got to the point where my mom was crying during my senior year, and that's when I really made my act around, right? So during that time, I knew education really mattered a lot to me. And because of that, I knew I had to make a difference later on down the road. Now I'm at a point I'm ready to give back to my mom, right? My dad passed away earlier on, but the fact that I'm in a position where I'm able to give back, that shows a lot of power. And I wouldn't say my journey was easy. Going through that journey, everyone's going to go through the ups and downs, but just know, keep your head up. And we have that first generation immigrant mentality that we can make it, right? As long as you don't lose that, then you're going to make it through. I did get another question here saying, let me see, what is a good credit card to start with? It would be a good credit card to start with is one without that many fees. So find one that has no annual fees for you. Especially being a college student, there are some, I guess you can say deals, but one good credit card to have would be something basic where it doesn't give you that many fees. It will give you some type of cash back rewards system. So you do get some money back for just using money, right? So just keep mindful of which ones those are. Okay. But I would say in general aspects, ones with the least amount of fees. And I got another one here. It says, where do you think it is best to deposit financial aid? That's a great question. Put it in your bank account, right? Put it directly into your savings. And this is where you should write down high yield savings account. Now, for some folks, what is that, right? We cover the basics of like putting money into a savings, which is great. A high yield savings account will be a savings account that actually earns you interest with the money that's not being touched, right? I don't expect you to touch all of that money, and right, savings is to save yourself, and ideally, that's supposed to help you to use it for emergency reasons, right? And that's make sure that's the reason for emergencies. Okay. But high yield savings account, I would recommend that to where to put your financial aid. Going to the next question. So I would have to pay back everything I buy with a credit card. Yes. Well, when you think about it this way, right? You buy everything with just like a regular like debit card or cash. So what difference would it make if you just substitute it with a credit card instead, right? what it is you're adding an extra step of paying off your credit card of the things that you already buy, right? And because when you do that, you're building up your credit, you're being responsible, right? And on top of that, too, later on down the road, when your credit gets really good and well, that you'll be able to apply for other things in your life, like owning a car for yourself, right? Um, getting a higher credit score or getting a high credit card limit, right? Which opens up more opportunities for you to spend on certain things, right? Uh, having a good credit score for owning a home at some point, right? These are factors where it may not matter right now, but it will later on, like when you graduate, when you go into like the workforce and all that kind of stuff. All right. So these are great questions, and all of a sudden I'm getting blown up with all these questions too. Let me see here. How do we open a credit account if we don't have a job yet? Thank you, Destiny, for answering that. Looking through. I find your background very interesting and can relate to many things. Is it possible to get in contact with you to set up a quick call? My interests are in business and energy. Yes, absolutely. Please, I am also a mentor. I'm part of the career mentor program with 10,000 degrees. So I think later on down the road, Mark, Destiny, Jonathan, I'm not sure if my contact information is on there, but if not, we can share that after this. Okay. So just keeping that in mind. What is the difference between debit account and a high yield savings account? Okay, so debit account is literally your checkings account, and that is your instant. Whenever you need the money, you can just take it out same day. You don't have to worry about it. Savings account, high yield savings account is I'm not going to touch this money, right? Um, if I do touch this money, I only have limitations of up to 6 times per month to touch it. If I do, I get penalized. Okay, fair. But when I don't touch it, it's going to grow money in there. Okay. And if I do need to transfer out that money, it does take about 1 to 3 business days to take out. So debit account, very quick, liquidable. I mean, it's just there to sit there to hold cash at hand. High yield savings account, it does more than that. Hopefully that answers that question. Let me take a look here. What places do you recommend to open a high yield savings account? It depends, but I would advise if you were to look for a high yield savings account, look for the initials FDIC. FDIC. Okay. This is to make sure that you're not going to get played for whichever account that you try to open for, where they say, oh, we're going to give you like over 7% like interest rates. I've seen it. I've seen it. And that's a bait that tends to hit a lot of folks, especially for like first generation immigrant background folks, right? To make sure there's FDIC insured on there and you'll see the logo and everything. That means it's backed by the government. So that bank is safe to run. Okay. So if you were to look it up, make sure you look up a specific one that has FDIC insured on there. Like Capital One is one that I trust. And I'll just leave it at that for you to research. Okay. Just so I can go through all these other questions. What pieces do you recommend? Okay. What do you think about opening a credit card with Bank of America? Ah, I mean, that's very specific. And to each their own. I'll give you that. There's nothing wrong as long as you do your own research, and if you like that type of bank, then cool. Then just open a credit card through there. Just look through this. Just look through the what's it called? The descriptions. And if you like the type of benefits and the annual fees are pretty low, then I'll say that will be a good credit card to start with. Okay. Let me see here. Sign up to meet with Peter via. Yes, go ahead.
It doesn't know what an interest rate means. Can you explain what an interest rate is on a card, please?
Interest rate on a card. Gotcha. So thank you. So interest rate on a card, it can mean two things. There's interest rate that would benefit you, right? Like save in like a savings account. There's interest rate that's because it's a loan, right? Like it's a debt. So that's involving credit cards. So this one here, the one with involving credit cards. So let's say you paid, I don't know, let's use easy numbers like $1,000 and you only paid 200 for that month. Your outstanding is $800. Out of that $800, you would be charged an interest of, let's say, 20%. So 20% of 800 would be about $160. So then when you add it together, your next month you have to pay $960 back, plus whatever you end up having to charge on that credit card. So does that sound good? No, it doesn't sound good, right? Like the idea is that you want to pay off as much as you can, which is why I set the rule of 90% at least. If you can pay the full thing, great. But just keep in mind that with interest rates on a credit card, that is the easiest way to fall into the hole. The best way to avoid the hole is to make sure you manage what you pay for. Okay. Hopefully that answered the question. And then judging by the time, Mark, Destiny, Jonathan, let me know if you want me to still keep answering questions here.
I think we could maybe do one more, but if we don't have one more, if you don't mind, maybe just putting in whatever contact info you would like students to reach you at for now, maybe,
Mhm.
if that's okay. But yes, thank you, Peter. This was great.
Of
Is any
course.
one last question for Peter before he wraps up?
Oh, I see one here a little bit, and I can see this one can be relative too. So the question here is it okay to get a credit card from a different bank than the bank you have with a debit card, right? Um, as long as you think you can manage it, okay? But that also means you have two separate logins, right? Let's say like one from Chase, one from Wells Fargo. So one of the key things is that it's easy to forget one or the other, depending on how you're using it, right? Like, for example, I have a bank with Citibank and I have one with Chase. The Chase one is with my credit card, right? I know when it comes to this credit card that I get the most bang for my buck with my credit card here. And I use my Citibank because they have the best rates for me. I pay the least amount of fees with the money I hold in there, right? And there's a couple benefits in terms of like travel stuff, right? So for me, that's the reason why I have two separate banks. Now, can you do it like that? Yeah, no worries. There's sky's the limit. You don't, I mean, I'm not one to tell you how to manage your funds in whatever way, right? Ideally, if you can consolidate with just one bank, then that's what I would suggest. However, I'm not going to tell you that limitation. Like, just listening from me, I like Chase because of the benefits they have with their credit cards. Like, I can just travel a lot because of the credit card benefits that I have with Chase. I love Citibank because I can use Citibank when I travel internationally and I can take out money without having to worry about international fees. So that's why I have Citibank for this reason. That's why I have Chase for this reason. Okay. And I know there's more last minute questions coming up, but Destiny, feel free to take over since I don't want to take up too much time here.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? We are also going to send this to students, and then you can also log on to your 10KD student portal and go to the mentorships and see if you can connect with Peter through there as well. And also, please don't forget to sign in so we can check that you were here. And then we do have some cool discounts to share from Mark.
Yeah, so this is a very quick kind of overview of some discounts that we found. I'm going to place them into the chat really quick just because I know y'all can't click into the presentation. But yeah, we have some ranging from the Cinemark, Great America, and then San Francisco actually has free museum days, which is super cool. So we definitely recommend actually still use some of these like discounts. Not for students specifically. I'm not pretending to be a student, but there are some really good like programs and free kind of events that you could do. And you can also scan below to get a little bit more information on those things. But yeah, that was a very quick from me. And I'm also going to place the QR code link where it directs y'all to into the chat as well. But I think this is for a final round of questions before we conclude our presentation today. But yeah, just wanted to see if there were just any like links. Awesome. And then I'm gonna copy and paste Peter's response to this one. And then we can go to the next slide. Don't forget to sign in. And if you didn't make any of these transition to college webinars, please sign up. You can access it through this link that we have. We have the Mason Scholars on August 5th. We have the 4-year college success on August 6th. And then we have the community college success on August 8th. This is if you didn't make the first round of these webinars. This is essentially an overview of the 10,000 Degrees program, our scholarship, and our services. So this is super helpful. Awesome. But I just want to thank you all for coming. No, there's no more mandatory meetings from what I understand. But yes, if you didn't make those initial webinars to learn about 10,000 Degrees and our services, we do highly, highly recommend going to those because those will have a greater like depth of information on all the different services we provide and a lot of pretty important information about your scholarships. Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
All right, thank you, everyone.